Hello, everybody. My name's Jeff. I actually pressed play a little bit early this morning because I was feeling somewhat sprightly. Welcome to this week's live event. My name is Jeff Rolka. This is your live event. So, this is the weekly hour of time. Hello, Danielle. That I set aside for office hours, which was what they used to call the teaching assistant's time when I was in university. At office hours, usually once or twice a week, and you could go and ask questions and get help and all that kind of stuff. Hello, Pro Audio Rev TV Giuseppe, welcome. Hey, Nancy, hello. So here we are, office hours. Let's talk vocals or whatever, actually. It's your office hours, so ask questions as they come up. I have to believe, I am a firm believer that if you're wondering something, someone else out there is probably wondering it as well, and we all benefit from your musings, questions, and comments. Danielle, I'm doing much better, thank you. My voice is getting close to being where I'm pretty comfortable with it again. I didn't lose my voice during this last cold. It was just like a cavalcade of snot. So it's more of an irritation and an inconvenience than anything else. But it still takes me a little bit of time to feel like I'm really back in tip-top shape. Hello, Stryker. And Stryker does open his invitation to hellos to all the rest of you as well. Chris, hello. David Sawyer, hi Jeff, love your videos. Thank you, I really appreciate that. And welcome to office hours. I don't recall seeing your user ID before, but this is the time that we ask questions and interact and all that kind of stuff. Chris Adwa is letting you all know that he is here too. So yeah, ask your questions and we'll kind of see how we go from there. I'm trying to think if there's anything that came up this week. I feel like there was something that came up this week in the comments on the channel, but it's just slipping my mind, and I wanted to address it. There's been some amazing questions in the comments section this week around various videos. I'll probably think about it in a few once we start getting questions going and all that. But in any case, if you've chosen to subscribe, thank you. If you haven't yet, I hope you'll consider doing so now. And let's see what's going on here. Bien Byongryong Na, how are you? I really like your channel. Thank you. I'm doing quite well this morning. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you like the channel. It is an adventure that I enjoy every week. Nancy, in 2 weeks I'll be singing the song Pretty Hurts by Beyonce. I'm having a little trouble with the chorus. It's hard to pronounce the P in Pretty Hurts. Yeah, those plosives can, so P's, B's, those are called plosives, and they can be very challenging. If you're using a microphone in your audition, I would highly recommend you practice with one, because it is incredibly easy to pop, so-called pop the mic. One of the quick fixes on that, in the long-term fix on B's and P's is to attenuate the amount of lip and air tension that you're holding with the lips so that you don't get as much of that puff of air. The short-term way to approach that is to think of an M sound. So it's not, oops, I forgot to turn the keyboard on. How negligent. So if you're singing like pa, 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 I'm probably popping my lav mic even though I'm not facing it. Think of a little ba, 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 pa, 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 pa. And you can attenuate the amount of that pop a little bit. It takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of getting used to. And you really, you want to be careful with that M sound, because obviously you don't want to sound like you're saying pop. If anyone gets that reference, that might be a little too obscure. Anyways, I hope that helps. Raphael, I warm up with you every day. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I would be interested to know what your favorites are. Nancy, it sounds nasally and weak. Oh. In that case, well, the M sound will still help. The M sound should still help with that a little bit because it'll keep the actual tone, the actual pitch that you're singing going through the line. It sounds like you're ceasing to phonate, effectively ceasing to sing, coming up on that plosive. So try putting that M in there and slow your phrase down. I'd have to go and listen to that song. I'm not that familiar with it. I'm sure I've heard it, but I've listened to on a weekly basis, I listen to so much music, it all gets to be a bit of a jumble. But the M sounds can help with that a lot, and slow the phrase down. If you can play like even just that snippet of melody on the piano, slow it down and practice the vowels first, and then put the consonants back in there, and see with a little bit of that M can smooth out the phrase for you. Beznov, hey Jeff, I'm from Ukraine. Hello from Kiev. I have a question for you. That's amazing. As far as I know, you are the first person to indicate that they are from Kiev. So welcome to the channel. Welcome to our live event this, I guess it's the evening for you. Welcome. And please, yeah, get your question up there. I'm waiting. Striker. From last week, and based on the video you posted, How to Sing in Tune, how do you approach a student with definite pitch issue being in tune, especially when they really don't know if they are out of tune? Yeah, that happens. So whether this person indicates or identifies as being a new or beginner vocalist or whatever, I mean, if you're out of tune, that's, I think I say in the video, that's kind of a prerequisite for making music. So that's a question of acuity as well as ability. In other words, they're not aware. If they're not aware they're out of tune, then we have to cultivate an environment where they can begin to learn that. The short answer here is wider intervals for that student. So don't try to get them singing scales. Wee 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 wee. It's too the differences between those two pitches are it's too much fine motor coordination. Have them doing bigger intervals. Wee 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 wee. Have them do it down and up. Wee wee, wee, wee. And then move around from key to key, that sort of thing. This can take a little bit of time. So you might not get an immediate, overwhelmingly positive result in your first half-hour lesson with them. And FYI, I'd probably stick to half-hour lessons with these individuals because it can quickly get very frustrating and we don't want to do that. We want to create an environment where they can start to explore how their voice is operating and begin to start developing some aural, A-U-R-A-L, acuity. In other words, their aural skills start to develop. It's usually... I do a lot of airflow work in general, but in beginning vocalists or vocalists where there's like severe intonation problems and severe intonation awareness problems, I'll get into the airflow really quickly as well. But doing exercises that don't necessarily need them to sing specifically in tune. So like there's an exercise I do very frequently where it's just hissing, and it's in a couple of the videos. There's no pitch in that. It's just air. But what it does is it allows you to judge whether or not the air column is consistent. So if you hear them, ask them to sustain it and continue to fine-tune the process from there. If there's bumps or it kind of fades out at the end or it's got like a big, hit at the top, cultivate it and stay in the thyroarytenoid dominant singing range so that it's nice and smooth. Giuseppe, Pro Audio Rev TV. Can you talk about singing notes above the secondo passaggio and the possibilities to sing along in that range, like some of big pop artists, like Bruno Mars? I don't know Ray and Tedder, but I'll have to... Oh, from One Republic. Okay, right. Well... So I'm pretty familiar with Bruno Mars. I'm not as familiar with I'm not as familiar with One Republic. I'll have to listen to them a bit more. I'm very curious now. Above the secondo passaggio, I mean, it's... I think about phonation or singing above the secondo passaggio in various stages. Initially, it's sort of survival of the fittest. You know, just trying to match timbre and trying to keep the voice released when you're in that range. I think that in that range, we start to understand a lot more about what our voices are really, really good at, and how that might inform or affect our stylistic considerations. So, like for me, like I can connect pretty well and it feels pretty good. But when I back away from that a little bit and I affect a slightly lighter sound, more of like the Tom York, or even, you know, it's sometimes the Bruno Mars thing. Actually, those both feel pretty... I thought that was going to feel like noticeably better to me, but actually they both feel about the same. I think that being above the secondo passaggio is a part where there's so much expressivity in how we choose to use that range of our voice, because we have the choice of increasing the airflow and being much more full and voluminous, or we can reduce that airflow knowing that the sound is going to perhaps maybe it's going to partially abduct, it's going to separate a little bit, and there's going to be a little bit of air, but as a different affectation and a different color. And all of those are incredible expressive tools for us. We can do that to a certain extent in the thyroarytenoid dominant range of our voices, but I don't know if the effect is quite as great. I think that the effect above the secondo passaggio is much more evocative. But that is entirely subjective. That's just a personal opinion. But can you tell me more, Giuseppe, about what you're asking? I think I'm addressing it I'm sort of walking the line between technical and emotional, expressive kinds of concepts. Let me know if that's what you're looking for. Monsieur Maubet, hello, and good evening to you, although it's morning where I'm in California now. Yeah, but I've left this on UK time. The whole talk around the live event is still oriented around 6 p.m. in London, which it probably will be into the indefinite future. Danielle makes the suggestion about using a pop filter for P's and B's, and that's a very, very good suggestion. You don't have that option, of course, in a live setting. Those kind of foam things you stick on the end of a mic are really meant to be more as a windscreen, not so much a pop filter. And for that matter, even a regular studio pop filter won't filter out all of the most aggressive P's and B's. Though that is a very good suggestion. Guadalupe. Hello, Jeff. I have a question. When I sing, I feel a bit of tension in the back of my throat. What can I do to relieve the tension? Okay. So it kind of depends. There's going to be sensations back there. The sensations could be you could think of them as being tension. What I would ask you is, does it ever feel painful? Are you losing your voice? Does your voice get raspy after you sing, or can you sing for like a half an hour and then you just can't sing any longer? Because there's a certain amount of muscle engagement that is natural to feel back there. It's when we have so much engagement and tension that we have problems phonating later, or we get really sore, that it's an issue. But the answer is going to be that there's an imbalance. I mean, ultimately, if you're feeling like you're tense back there, the problem becomes that there's some type of imbalance in airflow and vocal fold engagement. And the answer is to address how you are balancing those two elements. The best way to do that is with short vowel syllables. So, and again, there's lots of these on the channel. He, or we. Just nice short syllables to see if, to look at the balance of it. If it sounds a bit squeaky, we, that's too much vocal fold engagement. If it's too airy, he, well, that's poor adduction of the vocal fold and probably a little bit too much air. So you just want to make a nice small sound and then start there and work your way outwards. Nancy, okay, thank you for your help. You're very welcome. Altug, hello, and hello to you. Monsieur Maubet, any more endurance or even strength building warm-up or exercise videos coming? I really like those exercises and warm-ups that test me and almost make me feel like I'm doing an actual workout. Yes, they are. I am just waiting for all of my equipment and piano and everything to arrive. I don't have the ability to record this piano the way that I feel is appropriate for general consumption, for release. And so I'm just waiting to get these things. That's why I'm ticking off a lot of these quick tips right now. They were kind of piling up anyway, but I will absolutely get right back into all the different warm-up videos and things like that once the gear arrives. Monsieur Maubet. The reason I always love singing Oasis tunes and Green Day songs, lots of power, sustain, and endurance. Love doing them sort of. Yeah, absolutely. I think those are very gratifying sets to sing and gratifying tunes to sing. Trinity Preacher, praise God. Hello, Jeff. Just stopping by to say hey, and all the same, hello and welcome, as always. Striker Kane, by the way, I'm not teaching. That I leave to the professionals. Fair enough. Trinity, Jeff, would you please make a video with the larger intervals to deal with intonation issues? Of course. That's probably going to have to wait until I get my equipment, but I would direct you to the I think the playlist is called like intervals or something like that, or intervallic singing. There's a playlist on the channel that covers wider intervals. I know I do fourths, I know I do sevenths, I might do fifths in there as well. I don't think I did sixths yet, but anyways, check out the intervallic singing or intervals playlist. That will be able, you can do that in the meantime while I'm waiting for equipment to arrive. JC's Radiant Ray. Cool, Jeff. Hello, all. Welcome. Welcome. I was worried for a minute there. But welcome, JC's Radiant Ray. Chris Adwa. How long do I do my warm-ups in a day? Is 30 minutes good? Yeah, I think 30 minutes is a good place. If the thing about warm-ups and technical practice is you have to ask yourself if it is serving your growth needs and the needs of the repertoire that you are singing. Usually a half an hour to 45 minutes is more than enough time in addition to whatever else it is you're singing. You know, honestly, a half an hour to 45 minutes is more like a lesson or a technical exercise that you're doing. I think a reasonable warm-up time for someone who's, you know, going to be singing a lot of repertoire, 20 minutes, give or take. If you're going for really long periods of time and you're not feeling like you're getting warmed up, then it becomes a question of how you're warming up. And that bears looking into. How are you engaging with your voice? How are you engaging with your body? Is your body awake and vibrant? Have you been moving around? Like, those are the kinds of questions I would ask myself if I'm taking like a really, really long time to feel like, oh, I'm ready to sing now. Beznov, I'm 22 years old and over 1 year practice breath exercises. My friends do same things and had results already. I'm baritone, can't sing higher than E first octave. No, it shouldn't be your age. No worries about your English at all. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to learn English so that we can communicate. I certainly haven't, learned your language. Well, in a way, I'm reminded of the comment I just made regarding the warm-ups. I wonder about how you're practicing. I mean, breathing exercises are great, and they're necessary. However, you want to also you want to make sure that you're covering some pitch things. If you're really not getting out of that, that's a very low range. If you're really not moving around at all, I would be interested to see how you would fare with wider interval study, which is what I was talking about with Stryker Kane earlier in our session today, which is, there's like a couple of videos in the beginner playlist on the channel. I don't know if you've looked at them or not, but they deal specifically with people who are new vocalists, new to singing. I know you've been practicing for a year, but if you're not seeing results, I would give them a shot and see how it goes. You want to find like the ones that have the wider intervals and see if that helps you to start developing some acuity and more awareness of how you're using your voice, how the airflow that's required to make those pitches, and then see if that starts to move you around a little bit. That would be my first inclination to have you try. Andres, I have been in vocal technique classes for 2 years and 3 in choir, but I have not been able to progress with my acute registry. Hello from Colombia, hello! That's cool. I don't think anyone has identified as being from Colombia, so this is cool. We've got Kiev and Colombia represented here today. I don't know what you mean by acute registry. I assume that you mean singing above the secondo passaggio or upper register. And by the way, same thing to you regarding English. Like, my hat is off to you for, being able to use English and communicate in English. I certainly haven't learned your language. And so you're all good, and your English is absolutely fine, absolutely fine. So I assume that means above the secondo passaggio. First thing, I don't know if your vocal technique classes are necessarily preparing you for registration event technique. It's different than singing in your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest voice. And choir isn't really about, being able to go all over your range. Choir instruction is almost always focused on blending of vowels, not necessarily getting the optimal phonation for the vowel. So I'm not entirely surprised that you aren't necessarily getting over the secondo passaggio with what you're reporting. Assuming that everything is coming along for you normally in your chest range, there's a high note playlist on the channel, and there's a bunch of stuff about how to sing over the break, how to sing, over the break, in head voice. Those are largely synonymous. And I would have a look at those. In particular, I'm assuming you're a male vocalist. There's how to sing high notes for male vocalists, parts 1, 2, and 3. And that would be a good video, a series of videos, there's 3 videos to check out as well. And that whether or not it gets you ultimately fluent over the secondo passaggio, that's all the technique, and it's just a matter of practicing and dealing with problems as they arise. Altug, why is singing half and whole steps hard to sing through the passaggio? An excellent question, Altug. Usually when we're singing smaller intervals, half steps and whole steps, we'd say are narrower or smaller intervals. When we're ascending, the tendency is to grease up to the pitch with muscle tension rather than maintaining enough engagement so that the vocal fold is flexible enough to adapt to the new pitch. And when we're descending, the tendency is to reduce engagement and airflow and kind of let the voice settle down to the pitch. Both are not really good ways to do it. They both result in additional vocal fold tension, and in both cases they have issues. You know, when you ascend by greasing up to the pitch, you're almost always flat. If you're not flat, you're tensing up the tissues in the aural cavity and you're losing resonance, which will make you be perceived as being flat. If you leave off your airflow on a descending interval or just half steps, you know, a small pattern, you will almost certainly undershoot the pitch, so you'll go flat there. If you try to like grease down to it, you'll probably end up sharp. You really want to, it's challenging, and add into all of that, like those things are true wherever you are in your range, but add into the fact that if you're literally in the zona di passaggio or on the secondo passaggio, the whole vocal mechanism is kind of in this flux where to stay released, you have to avoid gripping muscularly with those muscles, but the sense is that the thyroarytenoid muscles, the chest voice, is kind of leaving off engagement to the cricothyroid muscles, the head voice muscles, the ones that expand the vocal fold. And it just feels like this kind of like very, very challenging place. And I still owe you guys the chromatic video, which I will get to, now that I'm thinking about it. Basically, all of those things go into it to make it feel really, really tenuous and challenging. Monsieur Maubet, I was wondering, when we are about to hit out high notes in the warm-up, should we prepare ourselves for the leap or jump, or should we just go into it without thought? Well, it's about what you're thinking about rather than an absence of thought. If you have a big, in this, you know, at Stryker, this really applies, or whoever, I think it was Trinity Preacher who was mentioning wider vocals or wider intervals. What you think about is as important about whether or not you're doing it. And I would direct your attention to your engagement. If you have a big interval, you know, I can think about that pitch as much as I want. And truthfully, I have to have that in mind of where I'm going. But what's going to actually help me sing to it effectively is going to be keeping in mind my expansion engagement. And I'm sorry, I realize I'm probably clipping the mic like really, really poorly. Again, like most of my equipment is being shipped, so you know, I grabbed the lav because I felt it gave me the most flexibility, but I hope that's not too hard to listen to. Anyways, focus on your expansion and engagement coming up on those wide intervals. The practice for that is to work it down, so you begin to develop the ability to anticipate the kind of engagement and airflow you need to successfully make that leap. Personally, I find when I'm moving around and not overthinking it, I actually hit the high notes much easier and more comfortably. Yeah, Yeah, if you have good airflow and good engagement, that can entirely be the case. Is the mouth cavity biggest when singing the O vowel? Interesting question. The main thing about the O or U vowels is the necessity of space in the rear of the oral cavity. So historically, singing instruction always wanted you to have, like, if these are my teeth right here, right? My teeth are here, then the direction was keep your mouth wide open. But O and U need space here, back near the esophagus. And so now the prevailing thought is that the actual front aperture can actually be closed a bit more, so long as we get basically a reverse megaphone. So now my teeth are here, by the crook of my hand, and this is the rear of my throat, where my esophagus is right here. We need that space back there to have good resonance with U and O vowels. Yes? Monsieur Maubet, when I overthink, I tighten and get more tension. I was just wondering your opinion on our body and even brain when we are about to hit these notes. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we benefit from avoiding thinking, but I think we do ourselves a disservice by thinking about things that don't help us actually sing the note. So obsessing about the high note is I can see why that would make you tense. I can see why that would make it uncomfortable. But focusing on engagement and airflow and the vowel that you're going to right before the high note, I think will facilitate your success quite a bit more than just having a sort of amorphic, the high note is about to come, is about to happen to me. Mrs. Webster, hello. Kids are singing in the kitchen, so I'm distracted by the cuteness. Yay for Shrek soundtrack. Brilliant. We've been having loads and loads of There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and Uncoupled. Starlight Express. That's we've been singing Starlight Express around here lately, which has been really, really fun. Monsieur Maubet, by move around, I mean running and moving my head in different directions. That's when I find it easier to hit high notes. Yeah, so it sounds to me like you're also carrying a lot of tension in the neck and your body, which can prohibit you from actually using your body as effectively in supporting your voice, in maintaining suspension or engagement. Particularly the neck, if we get too tight in the neck, that just immediately translates to all kinds of muscle tension in and around the voice and the oral cavity, and it doesn't make it easier. Cedric Rose, yo, Jeff, recently came across your tenor warm-ups, and they're super helpful, wonderful. I was just wondering if you could think of any relaxation techniques past the C5 area. I think I'd like you to be more specific. In what way? Are you tensing up? I mean, is your voice tensing up, and so consequently you're singing out of tune? Are you getting all rigid and tight in your body? Like, can you speak more specifically about what kind of tension that is? Altug, how to sing words that have a K in it. Think of it a little bit like the German CH, I believe. It's kind of like a cat hissing a little bit. It's not that you want it to sound that way, but if you practice with that approach to the consonant, then you can kind of mitigate how much tongue tension you're using to articulate the K, and that will soften the amount of tension you have in that consonant. So you can soften the consonant a little bit, but the practice for that is and learning to control the amount of tension that you have in the tongue for that consonant. Karina Chen, hello Jeff and fellow singers, and hello to you. Rach113, hello. Michael, Hello, Jeff. So nice to be here again. You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I just wanted to find out if eating too much before performance can affect the voice. Absolutely. Do not go out and crush like, a super famoso burrito before like 5 minutes before you're gonna get on the stage. I mean, just from I don't know that the stomach actually contracts in size when we do any kinds of expansion. And certainly with the Apagio breath management system, you're going to be expanding more laterally and making more space this way rather than trying to push down or pressing the stomach out, which I'm not an advocate of. But just the weight of it and the sort of ballast in the body when you've eaten a large meal before singing, I find that incredibly uncomfortable. And if there are foods that make you particularly lethargic or sleepy, then that certainly isn't going to help either. Mrs. Webster at Monsieur Maubet. Gerald Ryan, hello. Gerald Ryan, I just heard a podcast, this is entirely off topic, about Kim, the tax collector in the Philippines. Very interesting character from the sounds of things. I hope that you have not had any run-ins with her. Robret, hi, where are you now? Did you relocate? Yes, I'm now relocated to California, though as a sort of nod to the time that I've spent in the UK, I've left the office hours, 6 p.m. London time and all that kind of stuff oriented that way. I suppose at some point I may switch it over to 10 a.m. California time. But for now, it remains 6 p.m. London time. Yeah, I'm in California. Giuseppe, thank you, Jeff. I'm not able to sing above G sharp and reproduce a consistent tone and stay relaxed. My voice becomes very tense, and in a bit of time, I'm not able to support the notes. Okay, well, there's consistency and there's consistency. You say you're not produce a consistent tone. That may be a function of just time spent practicing in that register of your voice. And in terms of staying relaxed over a long term of time, I would keep in mind how long you've been able to sing above this, whatever that is, however long it is you've been able to sing over the secondo passaggio. The muscles that you developed in order to do that, the posterior and anterior cricothyroid muscles, are much smaller than the thyroarytenoid muscle. But more important than that, they don't get nearly as much usage. So if you've only been singing above the secondo passaggio for a year or 2 years, just in terms of muscular endurance, you're not going to have as much endurance as the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. And the tension just comes because you're starting to get a little bit of fatigue and you're starting to compensate with thyroarytenoid muscle tension. And so the thing to do is just take a short break. Take a short break, it doesn't have to be long, 5-10 minutes, or sing something else in the thyroarytenoid dominant range of your voice, and then come back and practice a little bit more. But work on it in sections. Don't push it to failure. I know that kind of strength training works in some things. It doesn't work with our voices. So work with it, and you feel it start to get inconsistent, or it feels like you're starting to get tense. Stop. Do something else. Come back in a few. Stop. Come back. Just alternate your efforts. Kristen Bull, hi Jeff. Tips for handling anxiety before, during a performance. Absolutely. I actually just did a quick tip on that was released 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if you're on my newsletter group from jeffrolka.com, I just did a really long newsletter about performance anxiety. I really think about performance anxiety as a process. It's not necessarily something that I expect to defeat. It's something I expect to be aware of and to know how to manage. and it's mostly focused around getting through the first couple tunes that we have to sing. And in my experience, a lot of it abates at that point once I get accustomed to my environment. The short-term answer to your question, I suppose, is check out the video that I just did from a couple weeks back. But also, I would be very, very cognizant of, like the things that you can control right now: getting sleep, caffeine intake, food intake in and around the performance. In particular, I don't like, as I was just mentioning, I don't like to have a full stomach when I'm performing. So, you have to be the judge of that, whether you want, what level of food stuff you want to feel before you're going to perform. The process aspects of performance anxiety, however, also deals a lot with noticing how you've behaved in previous performances. What's your level of preparation like, and is it appropriate to what you have to do? Things like in the days preceding your performance, what you're doing, and just the general body rest that you get in those days prior to it. I get into things about like the clothing that I wear and how that makes me feel, the shoes that I wear and how they make me feel. There's lots and lots of things that I feel go into constructing an environment where we can be most comfortable and therefore allowed to focus primarily on the performance and whatever our form of anxiety is. So like in my newsletter, I talk about the saboteur. And this takes the form of crosstalk. You're not good enough. Someone else is going to do it better than you. Why are you bothering? No one's going to listen. Those kinds of things. And by trying to create as comfortable an environment as we can, this enables us to deal with those things more effectively, I feel. And that's a lot. I mean, I'm getting ready to write a book about this I keep on saying it's going to be the end of this year, but it's almost certainly going to be spring next year, because even as I'm compiling a list of research articles and things like that, I'm like, I'm going to go over on this. I can tell right now. So I do hope that helps. Oh dear. For some reason, I can't. It's like the chat is scrolling automatically, and I lost a couple of those comments. I see Trinity Preacher, Intervals Playlist, thank you so much, you're very welcome. Mrs. Webster, thank you, Jeff. I will look into your intervallic playlist. Please do hit the 6 when you have a chance. I will. Going up and down from those are tricky in church choirs. You got it. Giannina, hi Jeff, I love your videos, have been very helpful. I'm a professional soprano singer, welcome. I do not recall seeing your user ID pop up before, so welcome to the live event. If I can help in any way, please ask. Yeah, exactly, Mrs. Webster is welcoming all the new people, and so do I, welcome. Karina Chen, yes, chromatic singing exercises for mezzo sopranos, please. I like the way you say hello, mezzo. Yeah, I do. I still enjoy that. I still get like a little bit of a kick out of saying hello, mezzos. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm just waiting for equipment to arrive so that I can begin recording all this stuff again. I don't know. I might be able to do something where I may just need a different cable or something. I'll have to look into that, because I'd like to be able to do some more warm-ups now before too much time passes. That being said, the quick tips are really, really good, and I've had a lot of those piling up too. Striker Kane at Karina Carlson. Hi Jeff, just want to say thank you. Your tutorials are great, helped me so much to improve my voice. You're very welcome. Welcome to the live event. Thanks for watching. Sharing. Hello from India. Hello. My voice is sweet. Is there any kind of exercises to make it sound strong? No problem for me to hit high notes, but I don't think my voice is strong like Ariana Grande. Strength is as much a function of strength. It has a lot to do with resonance and how people perceive our voices. My immediate inclination would be to, and I wonder about your phonation. I have a suspicion that you're only partially adducting the vocal fold, and that's going to rob you a lot of resonance. It wouldn't prohibit you from singing high, which is as you indicate. So I would first look, and this is in a different range from you, I'm guessing. I would first assess how well the vocal fold is adducting. There's a video on chord closure, which would be worth checking out, but you want it to be balanced. We, you. If you can make those bright sounds like that, and then move it on to more sustained singing, that well-adducted vocal style will generate more perception of strength. It'll generate a lot more resonance as well. You may find that initially it's more challenging to cross the secondo passaggio or the break in your voice if you're aware of that, or maybe not. But that's my wonder there, is that you might not be entirely adducting the vocal fold. Chris, is there a technique to hum? Humming, the letter M is a partially phonating consonant. So all the same rules that apply to us when we're singing basically apply to humming, except there's just not that much air moving over things. One bit of advice I would suggest, however, is keep the lips only as lightly touching as possible. Don't mash your lips together like that. Let them be very, very light. This lets you keep a little bit more space in the rear of the oral cavity open. Andres, thank you, Jeff. Love your channel. I'll take a look at those videos. Wonderful. Brilliant. David, any tips to overcome morning voice? I sometimes have to sing early in the morning at church. Thanks for all the great info. You're very welcome. Two things. And I'm going to start speeding up because I know I'm getting behind here, and I want to try and get all the questions that are on screen. One, experiment with how early you got to get up. Sorry. No two ways around that. If you got to sing early, you got to get up even earlier. That's just the way it's going to be. Two, wake your body up first. So do 20 push-ups and 30 jumping jacks and bounce around a little bit, roll your shoulders, move around, get your body awake before you start to sing. And that may expedite your warm-up process. If you're particularly phlegmy in the morning, then you may have to have a little bit more water than you might normally consume on the days that you have to sing. Additionally, if you have sensitivities to caffeinated beverages or heat, and the heat around the vocal fold is really a bigger deal, I think, than the caffeine in coffee or tea, then you may find that it's easier if you avoid those until you're done singing, if you can. Altug at Striker. Mrs. Webster, thank you, Jeff, for your wonderful response to Altug's question. I'm flagging this to listen again later as well. I learned more by listening more than once. Brilliant. Wonderful. Robret, hello. Can you suggest some vocal exercises for altos and overcoming flatness? There are times when singing in one of my choirs that although the songs are we sing, I'm not sure what you mean by the songs are very, but we sing flat. The video that was released just this week deals with intonation or singing in or out of tune. And largely, I think of intonation as a symptom of something else being problematic. So it might be the range, it might be that you're not warmed up, it might be that you're too tense in the zona di passaggio, it might be that your airflow is insufficient, or you're disengaging from your support as you're singing descending lines. All of those are the things. We have to identify what is actually making us out of tune. Because the fact is if you generally sing in tune, but all of a sudden there's a passage that you're out of tune on, it's not because of your perception. You can hear that if you can sing in tune someplace else, but you can't sing in tune here, What's the action item that we need to tackle? So if it's in the zona di passaggio, we're probably not engaged enough. We don't have support or airflow commensurate to range. If we've got some big skip down and we're just bottoming out as we go down that big intervallic leap, but we normally sing in tune elsewheres, then we need to address our technique on singing that interval and how we're doing it if we're disengaging too much or something like that. So that would be my recommendation would be check out that video, see if anything rings a bell, or if you go through that video and then you look at the songs from your choir and you're like, huh, well actually that right there is in the zona di passaggio. Thinking about alto lines in choral works, I'm just sort of scanning through my memory of Bach chorales, and obviously like they could all be in different keys for your choir, but I'm just, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking about a few that I know, and they hover in that like middle C to G above middle C area. And that G above middle C is getting right into the area of the alto zona di passaggio. So a lot of these airflow and engagement issues are going to become really problematic as you ascend towards that pitch. Not to mention that if you're singing a lot of these pieces throughout the duration of your rehearsal, it's possible that fatigue to a certain extent is setting in as well. Let's see, Brett, Paul, how many passagios are there, and do all male singers break around F sharp? Cool question. The primo passaggio is a perfect fourth below that. You're talking about the secondo passaggio there, which is commonly referred to as the break. That is the point at which the cricothyroid dominant voice is the main mode of phonation. Below that, you have the perfect fourth below that is the zona di passaggio, where the thyroarytenoid muscles and the cricothyroid muscles are kind of like changing over. So it's a sort of a changing of the guard, if you will. And then below middle C, for the fosh you're speaking of here, thyroarytenoid dominant. The next transition point for the fosh that you are speaking of is B flat, B flat 4, B4, right below C5. We don't call it the third passaggio, although that's what I often refer to it as in my videos because I'm avoiding saying the F word, falsetto. What that word means in this context is that the vocal folds are partially abducted, so they're not entirely touching. Adducted is together, abducted is apart. And the ligament on the outer surface area becomes involved in the act of phonation, in creating the pitches. But it doesn't sound like falsetto in that range. It's not airy, it's not light, it is very full voice sounding. It sounds full. It is a full vocal sound. It is not like that is a falsetto tone production in my head voice range. That's my head voice, and I've been talking so much and not singing enough this morning. And so you can really clearly hear the distinction between the two. If I have a little water, and I sing into that falsetto area of my voice, it doesn't sound airy, but it's falsetto. Those last couple notes at the top, that was C5. So I hope that helps. Basically, I really avoid saying the word falsetto if I can at all avoid it, but that transition is what we call the transition into falsetto. Female voices, it'd be flageolet. Yeah. Gerald Ryan, you're early today, Jeff. Just 1:30 here. Yeah, you're burning the midnight oil. My hat is off to you, Gerald Ryan. Sharing, also, sir, can you yell mean how to develop a good vibrato? Tell me, I think you mean tell me how to develop a good vibrato. Vibrato is the natural, you're welcome, by the way, thank you for saying so. Vibrato is a naturally occurring oscillation when we have parity between the vocal fold and our suspension. In English, when we have good chord closure and good support, they work together and they start to shimmy a little bit. It's like each one's kind of pushing and pulling a little bit, and they're pushing back and forth and pushing back and forth, and all of a sudden we get that little vibration, we get that little vibrato. When we try to force a vibrato, it can often sound very contrived and jerky, and that's usually because we're either modulating airflow to create a vibrato, or we're greasing the vocal fold up and down and kind of manually forcing it to do the oscillations. If you really want to have a smooth, connected vibrato, focus on vowel alignment and airflow, and in that practice, you will begin to notice that your voice will start to shimmy. And you'll feel it kind of, it begins kind of as a destabilization. It feels like it's getting a little bit wobbly on you. And then over time, you might notice that it kind of just starts to shimmy a little bit. And you can then begin to kind of encourage that and go along with it. So the answer to a vibrato is focus on alignment and airflow and efficiency of phonation. And that, in a very short amount of time, will result in a vibrato. Monsieur Maubet, by the way, that messenger I go online has done wonders for my neck and shoulders. Oh, wonderful. So I can really use it on the places that have bad knots. It's been great to alleviate tension and tightness. That's wonderful. I'm curious. I might have to see if I can find one. Chris Adwa, I know the best way to warm up is to be standing, but I lie on my back. Well, if it works for you, we all learn in different ways. So if that's what works for you, what I would suggest you do, however, is to alternate. So lie on your back for a little while and become aware, try to be aware of the physical sensations, then pop up and do the same and try to recreate those same physical sensations. Sophia, hello from Greece. For personal reasons, I have to sing and do my vocal exercises over a month. So I want to ask you what exercises are appropriate and will help me to be able to sing again without fear and tension. And I'd love to see a third video of yours with diaphragmatic exercises. Your English is excellent. There's nothing, no reason, no forgiveness, none of that is necessary at all. Well, thank you for joining us from Greece. Absolutely do this. Again, I'm happy to do more of those diaphragmatic exercises. I feel very, very good about those videos. And I think there's a lot of potential for help and growth in those videos, just on a personal level, of one who would use them, myself included, honestly. I'm not sure what you mean by doing your exercises over a month. If you mean do them over the duration of a month, or you haven't been able to sing for a month, I'm not entirely sure. But the main thing about fear and tension is tension in the larynx is almost always related to a lack of sufficient airflow. So if you're feeling a lot of engagement and tension here, address your support. So, watch the video on Apagio breathing and do the diaphragmatic. It seems like you already are, but redouble your efforts on those. You may also work on some videos that do not include the words full range. These are going to keep you in your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest voice. And it's an easier place to focus on the sensations of the body without concerns of registration events, and allow you to really, really fully commit to being focused on your engagement, your airflow, and getting your vowels aligned. because the vowel alignment and or lack thereof will also result in more tension because you're trying to force those vowels to resonate, force them into shape, and we want to find where they resonate similarly, but we're not creating tension in the process. Striker Kane at Altug. Michael, thanks Jeff. Agreed. Keep the meal light. Wonderful. Striker Kane, the book I use is Jeffrey Allen's Secrets of Singing. Comes with great practice CDs. I have the CDs done in iTunes and won't post them publicly, but can share them otherwise. There you go. Cedric, both examples you gave, I got a lot of tension in my neck and throat area. Past C5, keep your head moving then. But it has to be arrhythmical. So if you're, jerking from note to note, that's not it. It has to be arrhythmical, moving out of rhythm. Haven't had any real personal training that relates to the passaggio. Well, that that right there is gonna be part of it too. I mean, if you haven't necessarily gotten some feedback on that, then you could be doing almost anything, and it's impossible for me to say if you're really effectively phonating through the secondo passaggio, which is of course a perfect fourth lower than the area of your voice at C5 that we're talking about. But for starters, yeah, be a little bit loose, be a little loosey-goosey. That's not very kind. Striker Kane at Chris. Nelly. Hey Jeff, I'm Nelly writing from Greece. I practiced singing for the last 4 years. I recently tried your AAA method and got great improvement. Wonderful. I'd like to ask how much time to practice daily. Usually half an hour of technical exercises is really, really good for continued really good fast-paced growth. If you're just warming up, then whatever serves the songs and things like that. Basically, if you're getting great improvement, keep doing what you're doing. Fred, hey, from Philly here. Just want to say hi. Thank you so much for your pre-gig warm-ups. Wonderful. Helped me tremendously. What is the best way to reach you to talk about one-on-one help? Get in touch with you at the website. So jeffrolka.com has a contact sheet. Just send me a message through that contact sheet, and you can we can sort it all out from there, basically. But tag your user ID so I know to whom I'm speaking. Not that it's not entirely necessary, but it's just nice because I'll remember our interactions from the chat and stuff like that. Let's see. At Sophia Nelly. Also, I'd like to ask if you suggest sticking to a genre that feels more natural and easier, or to be open to various genres. That's entirely up to you. Entirely up to you. Just from a personal growth standpoint, I think it's good to explore other genres. I personally explore all kinds of different genres. But as a writer and performer, I kind of stick to to the singer-songwriter thing. I don't really, I've never gone on in a metal band or anything like that. And I've been in some harder rock bands, which was a bit of a stretch for me. I felt a little bit goofy, but that's fine. Not every genre is for everybody, and I think you also have to weigh the cost. Like, is it worth it to you? Is the payout or the learning environment or just the experience of it so valuable that it's worth extending yourself into this area? And if so, if you can answer yes to those or a couple of those questions, then yeah, by all means, do it. And if not, well, you may decide to do it anyway, but entirely up to you. Giuseppe, you're very welcome. Karina, looking forward to seeing more warmths. Absolutely. More airflow, breath. I know, I got like lists and lists of everything that I got to do. Thank you so much. Looks like people are kind of wrapping it up. Here, Penny Martin, I am classically trained violinist. As an instrumentalist who has come relatively late to singing, I'm an alto with several notes in the mezzo range. My higher range notes seem to be progressing. How can I improve my tone quality in the lower end of my range? Work towards efficient phonation and consistency of airflow over the vocal fold. So you want to adopt as balanced an approach to your phonation, to your singing as possible. This is most quickly achieved by starting, if you haven't done this already, with short vowel syllables. When you've got good adduction on at least a couple, we, then start cycling through e, a, o, u, e, a, o, u. Usually A is going to be the one. A. Make that one your template and start comparing and contrasting it to all the other vowels. A, o, a, o. If there are differences in phonation or the response in your voice, work towards reconciling them. That's the short answer. There's a lot of process that goes into that. So please know that's just how we do it. Your process will almost certainly involve shifting vowels around in different patterns and things like that. Dan, you're welcome for the baritone. To warm up like Kurt, to sing like Kurt Cobain, do you need a warm up? I guess if you want to be able to sing after you're done singing like that. You know, there are many times when he would do 1 or 2 takes of a song and then not be able to sing anymore. You know, his singing is raw and it's emotional. It's much closer to shouting in key, which isn't particularly good for our voices and is more of a stylistic affectation than a way of singing. That is not said to diminish it. It's just to say that if you're going to try to emulate Kurt Cobain, then realize that you won't sound like him. You will sound like someone shouting in key to the songs that they wrote. With vocal training, there's a certain amount of we get our vowels and stuff like that aligned, and we get consistent responses. And so, you know, even amongst, you know, opera singers, they clearly sound different because they are different people. But there's a quality that I think transcends the genre that people adhere to. Anyways, thank you all so much. Me, Antonius, I actually talked about vibrato. This is going to get published to YouTube as soon as I stop transmitting. And I would say go and have a listen to that. It was about a half an hour ago, somewhere in the midpoint, I think. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today, for watching, for participating in the channel. Thank you for your comments. As always, this has been an awesome live event, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I hope that you did too. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing. We'll see you in the comments section, or perhaps we'll see you here next week. And until then, bye.